chat. Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped but it's no hype. From this height it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat beat into the vocals. I'm so no-go, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in. Full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio. Once again with your host, Nick Burnaby, here on UCY.tv. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And welcome to the show. So we have a crazy show lined up for you tonight. We're going to talk about all kinds of things. I have a special guest here in the studio with me tonight, Levon Morales from our Friday night broadcast. How's it going, Levon?
It's going really well. Hello, glad to be here.
And it looks like we're joined with Manny from Los Angeles. How's it going, Manny?
Hey, what's up, Nick, and stuff like that. Just wanted to kind of ask you right off the bat, what's the update on that court date? Today's March 11 on PM Beers, and basically just wanted to know that also, okay?
Yeah, what I know right now is that Monday is, this coming Monday is when the trial is going to start. And, that's when we got to, we got to try to get out there and support, and we're working on an article right now. Look for it later this week. It'll be out by Friday for sure.
Okay.
But, this what's going on in Fullerton with PM Beers. Now, those not familiar with PM Beers, she's probably one of the most famous, she's probably one of the biggest live streamers on the West Coast, if not Los Angeles. And she's an activist, she's a journalist. She brings us the news straight from the ground. She's embedded within the protests, and she works with us at the Anti-Media. But during the Fullerton protests, which followed the death of Kelly Thomas at the hands of the Fullerton police, she was there covering the protests, and she ended up getting arrested, and now she's being charged with crimes. But the thing is that she was, conducting journalism while this was going on. She was part of the press. She was live streaming, and her trial starts this Monday on the 16th in Fullerton, California, which I believe it's in Orange County. And to me, this is journalism on trial, because live streaming journalism, citizen journalism, this is the new journalism. So this is a test of the First Amendment. I think this case is a lot bigger than people want to talk about because, if this goes through and they charge them with this, well, then it means that anyone that's live streaming at a protest could potentially be arrested. And that's really dangerous when it comes to freedom of speech. So yeah, that's what's going on with Patty, PM Beers, and we got to get out there and support. Thanks to all of our listeners and all of our readers that donated to her legal defense fund. It really means a lot. It really helps out a lot too. Any extra change can help at this point because you need money to fight back against this system. The system's regressive. It works against the people that don't have money. and the people that do have money, they never get punished as harshly as the people that don't. And they just it just goes to show, man. It goes to show the battle that we're fighting. Citizen journalism is going on trial in Fullerton, California. We're going to be reporting on it. We're putting out an article this week. I think it's going to be, I mean, who knows? It may go higher up into the courts. It may go to the Supreme Court. I'm not sure. But it could be disastrous if they are convicted or whatever, sentenced for the free press, because how else are we going to know what's going on? If it weren't for the live streamers in Ferguson last year during the Mike Brown protests, well, then we would have never really known that what was going on. We would have never known that journalists were getting tear gassed. We would have never known that journalists were getting shot with rubber bullets, arrested. I mean, you think CNN would have reported on any of that stuff had it not been for the people on the internet showing what was really going on? No. So that's why, I don't think this is a small case of, well, it just happened to be that they arrested a journalist and stuff. No, this is part of the overall war on journalism that's been going on, and they're trying to do it legislatively. They're getting pushback legislatively, so they're taking it to the streets, and they're just snatching people off the streets.
Exactly, and I know that you stand by PM Beers. I stand by PM Beers and stuff like that, so that's a good thing that we're doing and stuff like that. Also want to say, ¿qué pasa, Venado sister? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Bien?
Muy bien, gracias. ¿Y tú?
Okay, muy bien, gracias, muy amable.
It's nice to speak with you.
Oh, same here. Thank you.
So I got to hang out with PM Beers. You know, she lives in LA. She was in Ferguson, as I was saying, covering it as the media. She doesn't even live in Fullerton. Sorry, not Ferguson. She doesn't even live in Fullerton. She's from East LA, and she lives in LA, and she was down there covering it. I went up last weekend with a few friends here, a few activist friends of mine here in San Diego. We went up to LA for that protest on Saturday regarding the gentleman that was killed by the LAPD, known as Africa, on Skid Row there. And we went up there, and I got to hang out with PM Beers. I got to hang out with Alyssa. Alyssa also was arrested just a week or two ago while she was trying to enter into the LAPD headquarters. You know, LAPD during all of those Ferguson protests, this is not well known. And Manny, I'm sure you could tell us a little more about this. The LAPD arrested more people than any other city in the country. They arrested over 300 people that were out there protesting about the Ferguson killing.
That's correct.
300 people were kidnapped, and you know what happened? Almost all of them weren't charged. So, I mean, they weren't even committing a crime. They were just picked up, and they did it to suppress the First Amendment, man. They were doing it to suppress freedom of speech. That's all there is to it. You know, we're at the front lines right now. I mean, this is what's going on. They're using their foot soldiers. You know, the cops are the foot soldiers of the system, and they're using that to suppress dissent, suppress the freedom of speech. They're using it to suppress journalism, and it's a scary concept. And you know, to me, and once again, it kind of goes back to this overall picture that we're facing, where we look at it in a way of like, well, if we weren't being effective, if these ideas weren't actually causing things to change, well, then they just leave us alone. They wouldn't do a damn thing about it. But the fact of the matter is that they're trying to constrain people so much with the NSA, with whether it's taxes, the NSA, Obamacare, the police state, the surveillance state, whatever you want to call it, whatever part of it, the Patriot Act. It's all because the powers that be are getting more insecure about the situation that's going on, and they're worried about us, you know, and that's why they spy on all of us, and that's why we just found out the CIA was working with the sheriffs to intercept cell phone communications via plane now. I mean, that's the latest thing that's coming out. It's these big brother types are getting very insecure about what's going on. I mean, these guys have access to polling numbers that never make it to the public, and they know what the sentiment that's going around right now. They understand it, and they understand that the young people are fed up, and they also understand that the young people are, you know, historically the people that are the ones in the streets are the ones that fight the wars for these people. If the young people aren't going to fight the wars for them anymore, well, then these guys are going to be in big trouble. We got a couple callers on the line. We got some really big headlines to go over next, but let's go ahead and take a couple callers and see if we could talk about some different things before we go into what we were going to go into next. So the first person to call in was from 623 area code. How's it going? You're on the Anti-Media. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah.
Hey, sorry, we can't really hear you on our end. You're gonna have to speak up a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Can you hear me? All right. Okay. So, like you were talking about earlier, you were talking about the First Amendment. I'm from KG. Obviously, right now, it probably hasn't been hit mainstream, but with the First Amendment really going on is that everybody has the freedom of speech, everybody has the freedom of right to pretty much like similar things about speaking on how they feel, on how they act, how they respond, and let alone Senator Arpaio, he's been the one that's been trying to reject the whole Hispanic group. Supposedly Obama is trying to come in here and saying this and that, trying to take the whole crowd with him and have everybody just right along with him when really under his nose. It's not what's going down. It's really what's going behind that. Everybody's trying to go mainstream and trying to think about that. Obama is trying to help out all these Hispanics, but what he's really trying to do is he's trying to get the main vote, and he's trying to get like everybody on his side, and at the end, he's going to be fucking everybody else. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, when off the base of when we were talking about your First Amendment. Like, I don't know. This is my first time calling, but I've always been against the anti-socialist. I'm trying to get my word out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, we appreciate the call, and yeah, you're definitely talking about some real stuff. I think you're right as far as the superficial left, which Obama is a part of. We all know Obama is basically a neocon. Now, this whole fiasco going on with Iran and stuff, it's kind of contradictory to what Obama normally does. Um, but yeah, I mean, they're trying to, I think one of the things that you're mentioning is that they're trying to kind of co-opt a lot of the movements that are going on there, whether we're talking about the Hispanic population, the minorities. The Democrats try to co-opt those people, but I think people are smarter than that, and they're not falling for it as much. I mean, we all, not all of us, okay, because I wasn't one of them. Our co-host DB, he's not on the call yet. He's going to be on in about 15 minutes, but he got fooled by Obama too, and he voted for Obama, and because everybody wanted the message that was being put out there. Everybody wants hope. Everybody wants change. But I think the whole point, the thing that made me realize a lot, and I know a lot of people that were Obama supporters in '08 that now can't stand him because he never really followed through on any of his promises, and he didn't really do anything that he said he was going to do. But the thing is that I think after 2008, people started realizing, and that's what really kicked it off, because Bush pissed people off. People were absolutely done after Bush. They were, people were talking like, I mean, the people on the left were ready for revolution after Bush. And then Obama was basically the appeasement that they gave to us. And he talked a good game, but when it came down to it, he basically didn't really do anything. So people, I think, as far as the millennial generation and people younger than that, after that situation, they kind of realize, okay, well, we can't rely on these politicians. It can't be the politicians that we rely to bring hope and change. We got to start thinking about how we're going to bring hope and change to our own lives, to our own communities, to our own families and stuff. I mean, that's, to me, the big trend that started after maybe not in 2008, but after 2010, when Obama decided to bail out Wall Street, and then 2011 when he decided to overthrow Libya, and then all this stuff with Syria, Ukraine, all this, he turned out to be just another neoconservative war hawk that talks a good game.
Let's get literal. Like the whole lead up on Obama and all that shit. He's trying to lead up to becoming he's kicking like fucking Romanian guys to fucking go over there and try to be with the Catholics and all that shit, just so he can get along with the one world religion and get that one world rule going on. And that's like kind of something I'm trying to get at. Like he's trying to put that one time up the point and let people know. But people, there's like 1% of people out here that know what's going on, and then the rest of people just hypnotized, And like I honestly, I feel like I'm one of those people that are awakened. One of the persons that's being prepared, like letting themselves know that one day in my lifetime, something like that will go down.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're on the right track because this is what the new revolution, the evolution, I like to call it, because I don't like to think of it as a revolution anymore, because what is a revolution? A revolution is just going around one time.
You're right.
When going at, like, when a clock goes around for 12 hours, that's a revolution of the clock. And so to me, a revolution isn't the right terminology, because a revolution, well, you start at one place, you have a journey, and then you end back at the same exact place. Unfortunately, it's so true. The language proves to be true over and over. Look at every country that's had a revolution. They always end up back in the same, like, oligarchy type of situation. So I think you're on the right track, man. Like, you're thinking, and you're thinking outside of the box. Now the thing that we have to do is just get it to spread, and we gotta get everyone that we know to start realizing, okay, there's better ways of doing things. There's better ways of not doing things. There's ways to conduct foreign policy that doesn't involve blowing up kids and killing people all over the world. I mean, there's ways of making peace. And that kind of brings us, to me, I guess that brings us right into our next big story. But before I go on, Levon wanted to say something real quick.
Exactly. And it's a perfect segue to probably the most powerful statement that I've ever heard by someone we all know, Einstein. He says that you cannot solve a problem with the same mode of thinking in which it was created. This is the year of solutions. We're all aware of the problems. Nick said, that this revolution started like primarily 2008, 2009, and now people are ready for solutions. So that's what we like to discuss in addition to the big headlines in this program tonight is what do we do to change it? And I'm a big proponent of food freedom. I've been practicing organic gardening for about 4.5 years. And there's nothing more beautiful than creating your own sustenance and being in an ecosystem with it. And it nourishes you in a whole other way. And it is part of your personal evolution, because when you connect to your food, you connect to yourself, because it is essentially what you will become.
Yeah, and to me, it's like we talked about how we can't really rely on these quote unquote leaders to bring us this hope and change and stuff.
It starts with you.
And the caller from 623, I mean, you may feel like there's not that many people out there right now, at least in your personal life, that kind of identify with these ideas. But everybody starts out that way. But to me, the one way I've found to like communicate with people is that you personalize it to each person that you're talking to. Whether it's your mom, even my mom even is kind of on the same level as us now. And believe me, when I was a kid, it wasn't like that. She called the cops on me for when I got caught smoking weed when I was 13. So I mean, she wasn't like that before, but now she's completely cool. But I think one of the biggest ways, and that's the thing, is like communication is key. We can sit there and call people sheep or call people whatever, or we can say, hey, here's why this personally identifies to your situation, and why we need to start thinking more about the ideas of freedom and liberty. And to me, one of the strongest words I think that we can use in this movement is autonomy. We have to be more autonomous. We have to rely less on external forces, because the more you rely on external things, the more you're going to be at the whim of any manipulation, whether it be from government, whether it's from McDonald's or Monsanto, anybody. If you allow that situation to happen, a lot of us didn't allow that. Our parents allowed it to happen. Our parents, the baby boomer generation, a lot of those people have allowed for horrible things to happen. And in a way, I don't blame them. Look at all the Cold War propaganda, the anti-USSR propaganda. It's still going on today. The communist threat. Oh my God, the communist threat. And we went into Korea, we went into Vietnam, all against this whole communist thing. I can't even count the amount of times we went into Latin America and overthrew governments down there over the whole red thread or whatever. But it's basically a product of this fear mongering, and so we have to really deconstruct it and break it down to the individual level, where people aren't in your individual life, I don't think most people are worried that a terrorist is going to blow them up in their neighborhood. And the fact of the matter is that terrorists don't do that. You're 58 times more likely to be killed by a cop than a terrorist in the U.S. So
Yep.
it's kind of like we have to keep deconstructing it. We have to personalize the information. The first step in the process, and we've been going strong at it for a few years now. The first step is identifying what is going on, showing where the problems are, and we do that all the time with foreign policy. Is okay, here's what's going on, and then how do we feel about it, and then what do we do about it, and so we're going through this process, and everybody that joins into this process, is at a different stage in the game. But I think there's enough people now that have been knowing what's going on for the solutions to really start flowing out right now. And I think food freedom and the whole March Against Monsanto thing kind of helped make that, it helped propel it.
Yeah, exactly.
But the whole food freedom, food decentralization, localizing food, like especially in urban areas where you have food deserts. Here where I'm at in Chula Vista, California, we're in San Diego County. It's a food desert.
You say that a lot.
Like we
It's
can't
a
really
problem.
like the nearest thing to me is all junk food. There's no good place to go buy like decent food that's not going to be unhealthy.
And here's why it's important to obtain food freedom and be responsible for what you're made of, because you have a choice every time you feed your being whether or not you want to hinder it or you want to help it. Think about that. You literally become what you consume. So if you're in a food desert like most of us, and you're being made of these ingredients that are Franken foods made in labs and like designed to appeal to your most animalistic senses, and they become what you are. So you essentially get caught in this like cycle of craving them. So it's work to be healthy. I'm not gonna lie, but part of going through that journey and having a shift internally, it is a change in awareness, because you become made of things with different integrity. And that's part of the movement. A lot of times, Nick mentioned earlier that I speak on Friday, and I talk about things that are not news. And people always go, "What? How does this have to? Why is this anti-media? Why is this relevant? Why is Levon talking about quantum physics and meditation?" It's because you, on a personal level, are going to move the revolution by personally evolving and being aware of how you are being.
Yeah, I think that's the thing for me. It's like we don't need to have a entrenched type of revolution where it's like trench style.
Exactly.
The
We're
revolution,
smarter than that.
We got to understand that you can't take on the British redcoats with an army that resembles a miniature version of the British redcoats. You have to have a different tactic. That's why I think people that are like calling for violent overthrow of the government and revolution and stuff like that.
That comes from fear.
I see why they think that way, but I don't see it as a feasible way of doing things, because a lot of people would perish.
Because then you're gonna be doing what they want to do. That's what they want. That's what they're planning on. So like honestly, I get what you're saying. You would want to just let that flow. But deep down below, there's still gonna be a percentage of that. That's gonna be standing strong. That's gonna be ready for what's going.
Yeah, man, we gotta just do it we gotta do it individually, and then infect the people around us with these ideas.
Yes.
And then it's like a butterfly effect that just keeps going
It
on.
is.
We have a couple more callers on the line. First, I want to go to 404 area code. You've been on for a few minutes. How's it going? You're on the Anti-Media. What do you want to talk about?
Hey, it's Bobby Rodrigo. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing awesome, man. We're doing great. We're just going through some stuff, trying to figure out how to beat the system, I guess you could say.
Fix the system, yeah. One thing I will say, I've been on the conversation since you guys were talking about PM Beers and what's going on with her in Orange County. That one of the comments is that they're They're worried. The police state is trying to do something, and I just want to point out that they've always been worried, and in L.A. has been one of the prime worriers as far as the police state is concerned for many years. They have instituted a pattern of abuse to the community that the community has responded to a number of times. The 60s are ripe with it, with the South Central riots. Of course, we all know what happened later on in response to the Rodney King verdicts. Of course, so what LA is doing is pretty par for the course. They're very good at it. They've been brutal a long time. The thing that is creating some awareness and change is that we are able to communicate better than ever before, of course, we're in the information age with the internet. And here we are talking. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. You're in Los Angeles. We know what the response was, for example, of the Homan Square release by The Guardian. It happened, across the country because activists who know each other through the cause, I guess we can call it, immediately got together and created it. And here we have protests in LA and protests in Chicago and protests in Ohio. That's the way we're combating them, but they are acting pretty much the same. Sometimes they get better at it and they get more weapons. And, they got their shields and they got their military vehicles, but it is par for the course. And we need to remember that. History teaches us a lot of things. And one of the things it teaches us is that this behavior has been going on a long time, and I really love the fact that you're calling it an evolution instead of a revolution, because that's what a damn show needs to be. It needs to be an evolution. We need to evolve past this behavior and past the treatment of human beings and violating their human rights the way that we do and the way that we constantly do inside this country, allegedly of freedom and liberty.
Exactly, man. Well said. The thing about revolutions, as opposed to evolution, if you look at it from like a biological standpoint, to me, it's like, if you look at the way animals have evolved, the way life has evolved on Earth, you don't really ever see them evolve and then go all the way back to what they were before. They continue on. They keep adapting to their environment, and that's the thing that I'm starting to realize, in a way, this is one of the problems that humans have had, is rather than evolving like an organism does, as far as when it comes to our philosophy on government, and instead of evolving, we just keep evolving. So what we're doing is we're preventing the natural process of humanity from taking place because we keep on using these static ideas that have been going on for how many thousands of years? Like, how many thousand more years are we going to have?
Since Cain and Abel.
I mean, how
man
many
has refused to evolve since Cain and Abel.
Like, it's crazy. Like, why would we keep doing it like over and over and over again? But we do. And it's time to evolve away from that and move on and continue to evolve with their environment. And we got to stop. I mean, there's really not that many other organisms out there besides humans that do mass killings like we do. I mean, yeah, chimpanzees fight, they go to war, and 20, 30 chimpanzees might die or whatever from a tribe. But I mean, some of these wars that are going on right now, I mean, in Syria, 200,000 people have died. Libya, at least 50,000 people have died. Ukraine, I don't know, 20,000 people now?
I think it was over 50 now, Nick.
It's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many, and the most horrid part of it all is that our hands are in that.
You were involved
and
subconsciously.
So, Bobby.
Look at how many people we killed in Iraq. The amount of people that have died because of our illegal war, we'll call it, in Iraq, whatever the hell that was in Iraq, our police action. Over 1 million people died. I mean, Iraq is an atrocity without question.
Yeah, and then all the depleted uranium, all the years and years it's going to take for that to go away. There's going to be birth defects for a few generations over there. So it's horrible. But as you mentioned, you brought up Homan Square. I kind of want to just go over this because it's still not being talked about enough. I mean, Homan Square is not being talked about enough. If you look back and where did all this stuff really start happening frequently, Well, we can trace it back to 9/11. We can trace it back to the Patriot
Mm-hmm.
Act. We can trace it back to the fear mongering that went on,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that fear mongering is resurfacing. I mean, it's resurfacing really badly. But almost everything that was done under the Patriot Act, everything that was done after that, that was supposedly to go against foreign, to prevent foreign terrorists from coming to the U.S. and blowing stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
It's all been turned back against us. Whether it's the NSA, whether it's the militarization of the police, or now we're finding out about places like Home and Square.
That's right.
It keeps coming back to us.
Well, we don't have another military in the world with the parity to us conventionally. So what did people think all this military hardware was for? No one dare attack us unless it's nuclear.
That's a very important thing you just said, because if you watch the rhetoric, this is real important. And just to give you a little background, I was an operations specialist in the Navy. I worked in the Combat Information Center of a ship. So it goes to that I knew about combat. That's why I worked there. Operations specialist is all about identifying, tracking, destroying every kind of military hardware there is on this earth. Period. That's what we do. That's what my job was. I'm an expert in combat. I went to school for it at 18 years old. I'm 52 now. What you just said is extremely important, because the rhetoric is, as you know, on and off all the time, is how, for example, Obama's making a sweep because he behaves this way, or we have to build up the military-industrial complex because we are weak, or we're taking something away from the Army. Meanwhile, we fought a 14-year war in Afghanistan and we didn't have any tanks over there. It's ridiculous. Against people who live in caves with pea shooters. There's nobody on this earth that can fight with us in a real war where we're really fighting, and we don't even need to put people on the ground. And our military budget, as everybody on this call, everybody on the show, I'm sure knows, is as big as the next 15 countries combined.
And that's just what's on paper.
That's exactly. It is extremely important that people understand that that everything that comes out about us not being safe is absurd. We are not going to be attacked and not know about it and not be able to defend ourselves unless we let it happen, like FDR did for Pearl Harbor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't work that way. We are, without question, the mightiest military on the planet. It's not close any way, shape, or form. And people need to understand that.
It's to the point now where RoboCop's going to be on our streets next year. So what do you think they got for the military?
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy what's gone on, and keep in mind on 9/11, I think nearly 3,000 people died. And since then,
just under 3,000.
Yeah, since then, as you mentioned, roughly 1 million people in Iraq have died, and that's just in Iraq. That's not counting Afghanistan. Who knows how many have actually died?
But the thing that really just is a nightmare about Iraq is the children.
Oh,
half a million children, because the carpet bombing, dude. They hit the civilian population. So.
Right.
And not even that, it's like we're breeding a whole new generations who hate us. Like, what is that going to do to the future of humanity in general? Like, this perpetuation.
Well, it's going to fit into the narrative, because what they're doing here in this country is we're breeding people who hate them.
Exactly.
Here's the most messed up part of it all too. Like, for me, man, is like, first of all, the invasion of Afghanistan, Iraq initially, from 2001 and on, it was supposedly on its war on terror, which even in theory is completely a flawed idea. You can't really battle an idea. If you establish a country that you're going, if you're going to fight a conventional war like they did, and you're going to go invade countries, you can't invade a country and say that you're fighting against terrorism. That doesn't make sense. But the thing is that they didn't have to do that. And they just basically made it seem like we were under this crazy threat by using all this propaganda.
Exactly. Like, in essence, if you understand quantum physics, by them calling it the war on terror, they created the war on terror. Like when you're on the freeway, you see those signs that say, if you're in an accident, pull over to the shoulder. Every time I see that sign, I think they're creating accidents by implanting that idea in someone's mind that they're going to get into an accident and need to pull over to the shoulder. Do you see where I'm going with this? Like,
Well-
that's part of the conditioning. We are in this war on terror, and there are
Well-
weapons, and we are threatened, and we have to be afraid. And
It's just simple manifestation of the will of a select group of elite people with a printing press of money, dude. That's all it is.
exactly.
That's all it is. It's people can print money out of thin air and they can make everybody else in the world dance to their little tune.
Yeah, man, and that's how they fund all this stuff too. Is all this foreign policy? You know, the country went bankrupt back in early '70s under Nixon because of Vietnam, and that brings us to like the point, really, what we wanted to talk about with you, Bobby, as far as 1971, early '70s, late '60s. Some major things went on when it comes to another tactic that we talked about is coming home, which is the mass imprisonment, the Guantanamo style, the CIA style tactics. You did an awesome piece for us on the Anti-Media, and it was it's one of 5, and so it's going to be a nice long series that we're working on about mass incarceration in the U.S. and
Right.
and how we allowed that to happen. And right now it's more relevant than ever because we're starting to see these incarceration techniques that were being deployed post 9/11, the CIA style, the Guantanamo style, the Abu Ghraib type of stuff. It's coming home. So, this is one of the things that as, American citizens, we should be absolutely detested about, but hardly enough people talk about what's going on with the incarceration system, prison for profits, all of this stuff. So if you can, give us a quick, background as far as what went on back then, back when all of this foreign policy stuff really got enabled back in the early 70s.
Yeah, the reason I got into it a lot is because a lot of the false arguments that we have, who's responsible for it, the Republicans are this and Democrats are that, and really it comes to duplicity of the duopoly, of the two-party system. They get an agenda and they work on it together, and it's not known to the public unless they do the research. And I wanted to find out, what were some of the reasons why we got to where we were. And the biggest thing that I saw, the first big change that I saw, was when the civil rights leaders were properly saying to our government that they are not treating people, minorities, in the same way when it came to justice as they were the white race. They decided that they were going to fix it. So their choice of fixing it was to remove discretion from the game. For example, in 1976, I want to say it was, they decided to take the discretion of parole issues from the judge and gave it to the United States Parole Commission. That was the precursor to removing parole on the federal level when the new sentencing guidelines came out under Ronald Reagan. So this was a process that went on for about 20 years. They had a commission. They had the Brown Commission, which was chaired by the then governor of California at that time. It seems like Governor Brown is like 100 years old, but it's a different guy. So he chaired it. They had judges on the committee, and they really didn't have any authority, but they studied the issue over a number of years, and they issued a report about it, and they essentially wanted to remove discretion from the judges. Well, they took it too far. And they now made it where everybody was going to go to jail for a certain amount of time, and we're not going to have any rehabilitation, because while that was happening, a push also came to punishment. It now was about punishment. It was not about rehabilitation. And then another push came because of the drug war. You had the release in the Vietnam era. You had the release of heroin that came into the country really heavy. And then you had the formation of the DEA when Nixon was president. And here comes the drug war. So now you have three things happening. You have discretion being removed. you have determinate sentencing, and you have the drug war. So by the time Reagan becomes president and the push starts to come for privatization of prisons, well now it's a for-profit situation for big money. So now you have lobbyists, not only from the prison industry, but from Wall Street, because they jump on board. Anything that has profit, of course, and anything that's going to trade, and anything that they can find investors on. So everything became to a push for this incarceration aspect we need to punish we need to punish offenders. We need to stop the drug war. So it was a combination, and the states fell right in line. California, where you are, is a prime example, because this is now they come up with the 3 strikes law right in the middle of the crack epidemic. And the 3 strikes law, as anybody who studied it knows, is ludicrous because of some of the reasons why they put people in prison for life, what the crime was, and they had no discretion to change it. No matter how the injustice was, they were not allowed to change it. So,
to me, it's also kind of like a sign of like a failure of our economic system as well, because
totally.
What these guys are doing is like they're creating a permanent class of people that are conscripted to be their clients, basically.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like a corporate wet dream, basically. What's going on with?
And you have to remember too that a lot of the states remove your voting rights from anybody who's a convicted felon. So they're now removing people from society as well. One of the paradoxes that goes on here is, they removed Reformation, first of all, and yet, they talk about, they learn a trade in the prison system, for example, and they get to integrate themselves back into society. Well, it's not really the case, because what they learn in prison they can't use outside for whatever particular reason. There's some trades, of course, that you can, but they took education out of it pretty much totally, and then of course they put the weight of money on it, but they just don't have a way for people to integrate themselves back into society. Just recently, a guy was convicted in Louisiana on a 3-strike law for having a couple of joints. And the judge thought that the sentence that he had to give him was too severe, and it was a minimum of 13 years because it was a third offense. The first offense was 24 years prior, and the second offense was approximately 12 years prior to the one that he was being sentenced for that day. So the judge sentenced him to 5 years, which is still ridiculous. The prosecutor appealed the sentence. It was overturned, and it was ordered to be resentenced within the guidelines that were set, and the guy had to be sentenced for 13 years. That's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a total hypocritical situation, right? And it's basically, one thing I mentioned on the last show is that it's also a brain drain, and a lot of the people that are in prison right now, or in jail, or incarcerated in one way or another. These people are like entrepreneurs. They're free thinking people that are willing to step outside the bounds of the law. I mean, these are the kind of people that we should be encouraging, not throwing in jail. And there's this huge thing going on right now. And I think everyone's probably aware of it, as far as these negotiations with Iran, and how the Republicans were saying that they sent a letter to the Iranian officials. Supposedly they violated the Logan Act, and they should be. To me, it's like these guys should be prosecuted. They violated the Constitution, right? To me, this kind of shows the hypocrisy, right? It shows the hypocrisy of the incarceration state, the justice system. Because, go ahead.
They changed that. You have to understand that in I believe it was 1871, but somebody may have to look it up, when the United States sold itself to the Federal Reserve Board. You know what I'm saying? And they instituted that about 40-something years later by law. But what they did was they were broke. And what happened was they basically said with this new purchase that the United States corporation reserves the right for the Constitution for its employees, not the people. So you have to understand that this is where it's going to go legally in the courts, case by case. If you're not a member of the Federal Reserve, you are not a citizen.
Well, to me, it just shows the total hypocrisy that's going on with the so-called justice system, because
So look at the Petraeus situation.
yeah, exactly. That too. And as Bobby
Great
was
example.
saying, like so many people are in jail over these petty things. Here in California, we got this 3-strike law. Thankfully, we now have with I think it was Prop 49, we kind of hit the drug war in a minor way.
Right. Right.
But the thing is that these guys are going to jail. People on drug crimes. I mean, in the Constitution, there isn't even you won't even see anything about drug crimes. So these crimes are these laws are made up afterwards. They're these crimes are basically extra constitutional laws that are being passed. Meanwhile, the people in the Senate are able to literally break the Constitution. And I haven't seen one Democrat. We're sold this idea that the Democrats and the Republicans are opposed to each other. Have any of you heard of one Democrat in the Senate or in the Congress, or even Obama, that has said, yeah, these guys have broke the Logan Act and that they violated the Constitution? No, because in the end, it just goes to show that there's really no difference. And
let's look at history again, real quick. There's never been a complete prosecution of a Logan Act violation in the history of the country. There's only been one indictment thus far. In my lifetime, a few times it has come up where it has been significant. For example, it is widely known in journalism and in political circles that Nixon undermined LBJ and his Vietnam strategy in order to get himself elected by literally saying that they would get a better deal under him. Thus, the Logan Act. I mean, we're talking about somebody who's actually running. He's not even a member of Congress, or he might have been. He might have been a senator at the time. But he was running for president, and he actually went to Vietnam and undermined. We had the situation with Pelosi in Syria and how they were talking about they didn't want to use funds. They wouldn't let her use funds to fly to foreign countries because of what she was talking about with Syria against Bush, for example. We have, during Reagan, we have Jesse Jackson communicating with the Sandinistas and the Contra situation, and that was so illegal. I don't even know why he brought it up. The whole thing was ridiculous. We've had a whole bunch of stuff that's going on like that. So, yeah, while it is a surprise that it is silenced from the left, and I agree with you fully that we basically have what we call a war party. Jeremy Scahill actually gave me a little lesson on why he thinks that. But what we have here is a situation where the Logan Act, they may mention it, there might be a petition, but nobody's going to do anything about it. It's not going to happen. It's like they write this, the Constitution needs to be taken out for a spin. That's where I come from. We would solve a lot of the problems in this country if the Constitution was followed, without question.
So,
and they disregard it.
It needs to be heavily amended to close these loopholes up so these fools can't use commercial code on everything.
So
go ahead, Manny.
Can we talk about the connection with Hillary Clinton and Libya?
Yeah, let's go into that. Let me give me like 2 minutes to go back on this on what's going on here, because I believe someone brought up the what's going on with Chelsea Manning and how the leaks came out as far as all those leaks that came to WikiLeaks, Julian Assange and everyone. Most of those came from Chelsea Manning, and Chelsea Manning is doing 30 years in prison. General Petraeus, which was the head of the CIA, he leaked information as well, and he did it for gain. Here's the thing.
To get laid.
It's so hypocritical.
He did it to get laid. Let's be real.
Exactly.
He did it to get laid.
So Petraeus did it for his own gain.
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea Manning did it as a public service. And Chelsea Manning is facing 30 years in prison. She's already in prison. She's doing 30 years in prison. Petraeus gets, probation? I mean, he gets a misdemeanor charge. I mean, this is insane. And back to what you were saying, Bobby, as far as the Logan Act, I agree with you. It isn't going to be prosecuted. Obama has already been asked about it, and he just deflected the question. There hasn't been a single prominent Democrat to come out and say anything about it. The only guy that said anything about it was Bernie Sanders, and he's not even a Democrat.
That's
He's
right.
an independent. So
That's right.
Here's the thing.
Don't forget about
Just look at Nixon. I mean, if we could have prevented Nixon from being a president because he broke the Logan Act, how much better would the country be off right now? I mean, what if we could have prevented Nixon from ever happening? Imagine that. So here's what I'm saying, man. Is like, you're right. Nothing's going to be done about it by the government. The government's not going to indict itself. The government's not going to arrest itself. The government's not going to incarcerate itself. Just like cops don't incarcerate each other, they don't indict each other. That's why I think it's time to start thinking like, you know what, forget going the traditional routes. We got to get like extremely serious about legitimately citizen arresting these people and actually stepping up and saying, you know what, no one else is going to do it, so we're going to do it. I mean, I think that's where we're at because, as you said, this has been going on since the 70s at least. We could have prevented a lot of bad things from happening if we would have actually exercised the Constitution against Nixon.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
Think about it. All of these 47 senators, they sent, and this is the latest article that I contributed to on the Anti-Media about how the GOP is basically willing to sacrifice American lives and, of course, many Iranian lives by opposing this peace deal. Because to them, it's more important to make money for the military-industrial complex than it is to actually find peace in the world. And for the U.S., if these guys keep undermining the peace deal, of course, eventually, we've already got sanctions on the Iranians. That sanctions are always the precursor to war. The Iranians are openly defiant when it comes to their oil. I mean, it's their own resource. I mean, they could do whatever they want with it. I don't think it's defiance, but the thing is that these Republicans have shown the willingness to let a lot of people die because they want the military-industrial complex to make a lot of money.
Well, you're the one, I believe, that posted the article that I saw this morning by First Look that talked about Cotton being at a meeting the next day with defense contractors. I think you're the one who put that on your page, and one of us did. And I happened to see it, and I grabbed it, and I read it, and he was at a meeting with defense contractors the very next day.
Within 24 hours, he was at a confidential meeting that was no press allowed with the military-industrial complex, basically.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Okay.
There's no denying it. Go ahead, Manny. Oh, sorry. I guess Manny didn't want to say anything. We have another caller on the line. We got to be kind of quick now. We're coming kind of close to the end of the show from 305 area code. How's it going? You're on the Anti-Media. Okay, I guess they're... All right, we're going to have to drop you. Sorry about that. I mean, we keep falling back into this cyclical thing. And that's where we have to break away. This foreign policy, this idea that these Republicans can go ahead and just send a letter over to the Iranians trying to sabotage a deal that could mean at least peace for a short time. Peace for 10 to 20 years while we still continue to get our shit together. These Republicans are trying to sabotage it because they want to make money. To me, I mean, the Logan Act is one thing. The Logan Act, I think we could prosecute these guys on the Logan Act. But the grander idea behind this is that these guys, life does not effing matter for them. And it's not just the Republicans. I mean, it's really easy right now to beat up on these guys because there's a lot of people that can't stand the Republicans. They're the most unpopular party in the country. But Hillary Clinton is a big part of it too. And it's a big group of people. They act like one is a Democrat, one's a Republican. But the truth of the matter is, no, they're all the war party, as you mentioned. And as anybody that's done like enough research would know that yes, it's a war party. That's basically all there is to it. The people that really control things, the people that actually make the votes count, whenever there's bipartisan support for a bill, it's the war party, and that's what they vote for. So, I mean, how do we prevent it other than opting out, and other than straight up arresting these guys, which I think is still an awesome idea. I mean, I don't know if anybody would be down to jump in and like arrest people like John McCain and stuff.
I've actually got a simple list of solutions for people to apply to their lives, and I'll be quick so we can get through this. So based on year of solutions, so besides grow your food, simply start asking people, how are you treating yourself today, instead of how are you? Be more real, be more personable. That was one of our points, right? If you want to exercise your rights as a civilian and put pressure on the police, who you said are how likely to kill Americans?
58 more likely than to be killed by
repeat that
terrorists.
stack. 58 more times likely than to be killed by terrorists. Okay, this is how you put pressure on police. Go on ride-alongs. As long as you don't have a felony and you're an adult, you can be in the police car with the police during their entire shift. You can get out of the car when they pull people over. Say you're not that bold. When you see a cop pulled over on the side of the road, pull up beside them, film, be the media, check on people. I did the same thing on Monday. There was this lady in a freaking walker being harassed by 4 different cops. So I stood out there and I just made sure she was okay. And you know what ended up happening? Instead of towing her car, one of the officers drove her home because I was standing there. I was like, you're not going to arrest this woman. She has a walker. How dare you? I'm filming you right now, by the way. So I put pressure on them and something happened. One other thing that I think you should do is go to old folks' homes, go visit those people and obtain their knowledge and learn history through their eyes. The world is not what you think it is, and these people will tell you what they saw and what they lived, and you will be amazed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we can learn a lot from the older generations because
don't forget them. They lived
they've been
it.
through these cycles.
They freaking lived
they've been
it.
through these revolutions, cultural revolutions,
Exactly.
and all that stuff. We have to.
Guys are calling me old, man. Some people.
No, experience.
We gotta learn.
You've been in life school, bro. You've got experience. We've been taught that getting old is bad. Heck no. Like, I got silver hair. I'm proud. I'm like, I got a crown of wisdom. Seriously, life school is a thing, and we're blessed to be learning, and how beautiful that we can share it. Like, we're sharing all this knowledge right now simultaneously. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And Nick knows me. I'm kidding.
I know, man. I know.
We have the caller from 305 called back in. If you're there, please feel free to chime in. We can hear you before.
All right. Hey, everybody. How y'all doing?
Pretty good. How's it going? What do you want to talk about? We only have about 2 minutes.
All right, cool. Well, I'm actually just over here just listening to all this knowledge that everyone is stating. I'm actually taking it in. I'm a first-time caller, so yeah, just listen. And I do enjoy everyone's opinions and statements. And yes, you were right. If Nixon was not here, the world would be better off. Believe me when I tell you.
Exactly. Imagine it. All right, let's look at Nixon real quick. Broke. And thanks for calling in. Thanks for listening to the show. We're really glad to have you. I mean, look at Nixon. What did he do? He destroyed the monetary system. He enabled us to continue Vietnam. He started the war on drugs. I mean, this guy basically almost everything that's wrong right now could have been prevented had JFK not been shot and had Nixon not been elected. I mean,
and had Woodrow Wilson not have signed those papers that thereby imparted the income tax and the IRS and all the other shit.
Yeah, and the Fed too. Yeah, Woodrow. Great point. Woodrow Wilson is besides Nixon, Woodrow Wilson is basically the second to worst modern president because he also created the Fed too, and started us off on this path. But hopefully we can start shifting away from it. Hopefully, little by little, one by one, we can shift away. And thank you everyone for calling in. That's the end of the show. Catch the show tomorrow night. Bye, baby.
Here we go. Through the stereo.